Welcome to pie dough. Yay, I'm going to show you a great recipe for pie crust that starts off so easy and then gets even easier. I'm going to show you some tips and tricks for making a great pie crust that you can use for anything, whether it's sweet or savory, just in time for the holiday season coming up. So, all right, here we go. I have 350 grams, which is 3 cups minus about 2 tablespoons. So if you don't have a scale, don't worry about it. 3 cups minus 2 tablespoons, all-purpose flour. And then I have 1.5 teaspoons of kosher salt or sea salt, either one. I like it to be the bigger grain. And then 1 teaspoon of sugar. So those are my dry ingredients that I'm going to start with. And then I'm going to put in my butter. I just took this out of the refrigerator right before we started to film. So I had chopped it up earlier, put it back in the refrigerator. You want the butter to stay nice and cold. So I'm just going to drop that in. I'm not even going to do anything with it yet. There we go. That's in. And now I want to get my liquid ingredients together. So I'm going to use a scale for this, and I'm going to start with my egg. So it's 1 egg. There we go. So just 1 large egg, 1 teaspoon of white vinegar. We have 1/4 teaspoon of cream of tartar. That's going to give it a lot of body with the egg in here. Just give this a little stir. There we go. And now I'm going to leave the weight on here, and now I'm going to add water until I get to 135 grams. So there we go. So what that does, it's going to make sure that you always have the exact amount of liquid. Because if you don't do that, you know, every egg is a little different, and so you're going to end up with sometimes having too much, sometimes not having enough. If you don't have a scale, this is 4.5 ounces. And so you can use that as your guide for it. All right, give this a little stir again. Go. Let me move some stuff out of the way. Move the processor in so you can see the magic getting ready to happen. There we go. All right. So now I'm going to put the top on. All right. There we go. So I'm opening up the tube so that I can pour my liquid in while it's going. So I'm going to have this all ready to go. And while this is going, I'm going to be pouring in just kind of a steady stream with the liquid. All right, once your liquid is all in, then stop. And now we're just going to pulse. And so on for about 2 or 3 seconds, off. And we're waiting for it to come together and look like it's going to hold together. It's not quite there yet. I'm going to have to pulse several times. You can see it looking closer and closer. One more time. All right, so now if you'll look, you see how it has like big clumps of it. That's exactly what we're looking for. And so when I hold this together and press, it holds together in a dough. So that's perfect. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my processor out of the way. I'm going to pour this out onto my table here. Careful, there's a blade in there, and yep, there's going to be dry bits in there. That's absolutely fine. We're going to get this all to come together. And see, this way I'm not overworking the dough. So I want to just set that to the side. And here we go. I'm going to just press. Make a little mound. What you're not wanting to do, I'm not kneading this. I don't want to knead it. I'm just pressing it so that it all comes together. There we go. All right. Now I'm going to cut this in half. So just eyeball it, unless you want to pull out your scale. And make sure that each half is formed into a disc, and you can kind of use the other side to grab up the rest of the dry that was underneath there. This is going to get wrapped in plastic and then into the refrigerator for at least an hour. So what's going to happen in the fridge is that the flour rests and it also hydrates. So it pulls takes all the moisture on. All of these dry bits will not be dry bits anymore. There we go. And so if you start with a disc like this, it's going to make rolling it out a little bit easier as well. So wrap this in plastic, and then you're going to put it in the fridge for at least an hour, up to 2 days in the refrigerator, and then be able to pull it out when you need it. I'm also going to show you rolling out and blind baking. So let me just put the crusts over here. We've been eating lots of pie lately while we've been getting ready for this class and the other series of classes that we're doing like this. So it's been kind of fun to have all these pie crusts around. Okay, so here I have one that has been rested. And so let me show you rolling this out. So a little bit of flour on your table. There we go. And this recipe is enough for a double crust 9 to 11-inch pie, or it could be tarts, or it could be smaller pies, single blind bake like this is. All right, I'm going to start with a little bit of flour on the top, but before I do, I want you to, Randy, can you zoom in really close? There we go. So you can see how it has little bits of butter in there. And that's important because that's what's going to make this flaky pie crust. And so if you don't see that, that would generally tell me that you have over mixed it. So you want to be able to see the little pieces of butter in there. All right. I like to use a handle rolling pin. You can certainly use just either a French style or a straight rolling pin. I like a handle rolling pin. And I'm just going to go forward and back. My dough came out of the refrigerator right before we started to film. So it's a little warmed up. I don't want it to be warm, like sitting out for a long time, but I also don't want it to be just straight from the refrigerator. Notice what I'm doing though. I'm not trying to get this rolled out to size in just one roll. It's just not going to happen. And I'm also turning it. So just a little bit of a turn after each kind of 2 or 3 rolls. And that's going to give you much more of a round shape than if you just roll back and forth and don't move it around. Plus, moving it around, you know that it's not stuck onto your table. All right. If it was starting to stick, then you would want to just put down a little bit more flour. And I'm just going around making sure that it's even thickness. So about 1/8 of an inch thick is what we're looking for here. Pretty even shape. There we go. All right, I am going to use just aluminum pie tins. And I like to take this and take a cutter and go around and clean up. So I want to leave about 1 inch all the way around, and I am right there for the size. So I'm just gonna clean this up. So you could use a pizza cutter, you could use a Like a little paring knife would be fine. That's even enough. Here we go. All right, save these little pieces. You can bake them and make little snack crackers. All right, so to put it in, you just fold it in half and then lift it up and put it right in. Here we go, open it back up and see by cutting it, it ends up being nice and even that way. So I'm just going around making sure that it's pressed into the bottom and onto the sides. And now I want to fold underneath my crust. So I'm just gonna fold it underneath all around. That just gives you a cleaner edge to it, makes it a prettier look. All right, so this is the kind of thing that you would do whether you're making like an apple pie, one that you're gonna be baking like a fruit pie, or to blind bake it. There we go. So I have it turned over all around, and now I'm going to crimp the edges. So I want to use my finger on one hand and my index finger and my thumb on the other, and just press in. And what this does, this keeps a nice edge on your pie, and it's going to help with blind baking. If you've ever made a pie crust and it just shrinks away, number one, that can be the recipe, so it can happen. But also, if you don't have a nice sturdy edge like this, it will have a tendency to do that. So you can see how pretty that looks, nice and crimped and ready to go. I'm gonna grab a fork here and I'm going to do what's called docking it. So I'm going to just take my fork 12 or 15 times or so, and on the sides too. So just all around. This is going to help keep it from puffing. There we go. And now what really keeps it from puffing is your foil. So I'm going to line it with foil, or you could use parchment paper. That would be fine here too. And just make sure that it's down and touching down to the dough here. And then we're going to fill this with beans. Yes, I keep a ton of beans in a bucket and be able to use these over and over again. So you don't have to have, fancy pie weights for it. Beans work just fine. I like beans better than rice. Rice is just too small. And then when you go to take it out, if you aren't just perfect taking it out, then you have to get your rice from touching on your crust. So notice I am like all the way up to the top here. So I'm all the way up with the beans. This goes into the freezer. So into the freezer for about 20 minutes with the beans and everything in there. If you don't have room in your freezer, then go ahead and put it in the fridge for about 30 minutes. And then while we're waiting on the time while it's in the fridge or freezer, that's the time to preheat the oven. So 400 degrees is what we're going for, and you want to put this in the bottom third of your oven, so not even halfway, in the bottom third. And this is going to bake for 12 minutes with the beans in, and then take the beans out. So you'll take the pie out, you'll take the beans out, and then it bakes for another 8 minutes, still at 400 degrees. So then you have your beautifully baked, blind baked pie ready to fill with all kinds of stuff. So let me show you what it looks like when it is baked. Clean up my area here. There we go. So when it's all baked, it's nice and fluffy, and it's very, very flaky. So this is just a beautiful pie crust that you could use for so many things. We have some great classes coming up in the pie series. So we have a cream pie that we're doing. We also have a decorated pie, and then we have an appetizer one that we're going to be doing, some savory appetizers with this same pie crust. So join us for those classes. and then use this pie crust for all different kinds of things that you need a pie crust for. You saw how quickly it came together. Very easy dough to make, very easy to work with, and it doesn't crack on you, and it's just so nice to work with. So join us for the classes in the pie series. Thanks for watching the crust class, and happy pie baking.